Hello and welcome to the Southbound Sports Show. I'm your host, Richie Leahy, here with my co-host, Matty B. And this is going to be kind of a non-typical show to start off. I wanted to talk about the Blue Ridge Rock Festival again. I know I gave some thoughts last week, but we're now, 2 weeks away from the concert? And the COO of the Virginia International Raceway went on the news and kind of put a PR spin on the entire event. And so I wanted to just speak out against it because I was there. I saw how unprepared everything was. And the one thing that really got me, and I think it's a slight on all people that attend events in person, is that he came out and said that the attendees were disrespectful to their staff. And that's kind of helped them put like the final sword into just canceling the event. And blaming it on the people that were there is insane. Because I didn't see, I've been to events, I've been to football events, all kind of concert events. I've seen people get kicked out. I've seen people throw stuff, fighting in the stands, right? I didn't see any of that at the concert. What I did see was a staff that was very understaffed and not having people there to support and come out and say that we're like, his comment was something like, oh, you try to put an event where there's 40,000 people coming to one location and it's going to be very hard to put together. But we talk about college football a lot on here. Michigan Stadium holds 100,000 people, Matt. I've been to games there. I've never had the headaches getting in and out of an event that I've had at the Blue Ridge Rock Festival. I've been to Happy Valley, another 100,000 person stadium, right? Multiple entries in and out. Penn State's very similar to the kind of setup they had here, where a lot of the camping and tailgating and stuff were done in fields. But Penn State fields were well maintained, right? The Blue Ridge Rock Festival, when they said they were finding campsites and finding new parking, they were probably cutting down trees and just clearing the land to make space because they were making money from it. So a lot of the issues that stem from this event, and mind you, we're talking about half of what the college football stadiums that I mentioned. I think they said there was around 50,000 people that bought tickets. People couldn't even get in. They were bringing in like one busload of people at a time. And I would see a bus come in and people were saying, oh yeah, it took like a half hour to an hour to get in on the bus, which to me is insane. Could you imagine if you were going to a college football game and you're like, yeah, I'll probably hop on the bus like 2 hours before the game, and the first bus goes and it takes an hour, and you're waiting and you're like on the third bus and you know you're going to miss kickoff? How pissed off people would be. Because that's how the event was. Like, people weren't even able to get into the venue on time because there was only really one road coming up. The state police had blocked off the others. They said that, oh, we only blocked it off for a short period of time for bus routes, is what the one guy told me. And I said, buddy, I've been sitting here since 3 p.m. It took us 10 hours to get in to camping the day before the show. They had like a pre-show. We missed the entire thing, which really annoyed me because we actually stopped at Bojangles, got food because we figured it'd be the last time we're going to eat because I knew it was going to be a shit show. And I'm like, all right, we'll go in. The show's supposed to start at like 4. We'll get in like 2:30, you know. We sat in line and we didn't actually get to our campsite till like midnight. And having that and them try to tell me that, oh, no, this is normal. It's like, it's not normal, buddy. I've been to other events. What are you talking about? And when the rain hit, which I'm talking about, Matt, the storm lasted maybe 30 minutes tops. Like, it wasn't like a big storm. I didn't even get wet because I was in the water tent. So the wind blew through. Yeah, I saw people's tents get trashed. I'm going to put it up on our Southbound Sports. If you go to southboundsports.com, you can see our Twitter and stuff. I'm going to share some of the photos I took. on there after the show because people were just trashing their stuff, and not because of a lot of it. Yeah, it was because like the wind damage, people were unexpected. Yeah, the storm did come out of nowhere, but a lot of campsites were fine. Mine was fine. I think everyone in our strip, we were like in the very back. Everyone else were able to camp safely. A lot of people, what they lost were like the pop-up tents, the tailgating ones that are like 10, 15 feet high, the higher ones.
Yeah.
And so you lose them, like there's nothing you can do. You can only tie it down. And if they're picked up, they're going to bend. The only thing that happened is they didn't have garbage pickup. My buddy was with me. He was gathering garbage, putting it by my car. I was like, what the hell are you doing? He said, oh, they're going to do garbage pickup. I said, I guarantee they don't do garbage pickup. He's like, why? I said, have you seen a guy even remotely driving through here? I tried to do the math before the show because I was so annoyed by the Virginia International Raceway guy about his comments about concert goers being disrespectful and like leaving trash. There was no dumpsters anywhere. I'm talking about where we camped. We were put in like the back outside section, like on the very back side of the map. I didn't even think it was a camping spot to begin with. They put us, I'm going to guess around like 20 cars in a row, right? 20 campsites that could hold up to 4 people. So at most you're having 80 people a row. They had 3 sets of porta potties, Matt. Each one was 4. So you had 12 bathrooms. And I'm not saying one row of 80 people. That was per row. There were at least 100 rows in this field that I'm thinking of, or like 50 to 100, and that was just for those 12 porta potties. By day 2, they were overflowing. I got my buddy's like, hey, I got to go try to find another porta potty. Those ones are flowing. I said, you're not going to find one. Where are you going to walk? I said, you're better off just going in the woods. So that's what people were doing. And I was like, and you expect the pile of trash by our car to be picked up? I'm like, we're not going to be able to fit that back into our car whenever we inevitably leave here. So it wasn't the fact that people were trashing the campsite. Never happened. The porta potties, they did pump them once before they canceled the entire thing because I think people were complaining. I didn't see the truck go through. I didn't check the other 2, but the one that was closest to our tent, thank God, was empty when we came back that night at like 2 a.m. or whenever we got back. But waiting in line, and like I said, I'm bringing this up on a sports podcast because it's the same thing that's infecting other sporting events. Because one of the other main issues, it was just in terms of safety. They had no water station. There was no water station anywhere near our campsite. We would have had to walk. I'm trying to guess. Like I had my watch. I was trying to look through it because I did turn on like the tracking. It was anywhere between 2 to 3 miles, I think, to the venue. I couldn't get an exact like measurement because we were kind of like meandering, right? I think the closest general store was a mile away, mile to 2 miles. I don't think they had water pumps there. You had to buy water. It was $4.50 a bottle.
That's a little bit of a price gouge.
Oh, that's definitely a price gouge. And they were saying that, we had these. I brought 2 5-gallon inflatable, like collapsible jugs, like you would use for like hurricane preparedness, where you're like, well, let me get this out of the closet and pump these up so I have like 10 gallons of water, if I need it. And so I told him, they said there's going to be water pumps. First day, let's go fill these jugs up. And we can even if we can shower in them or whatever, because showers ran out of water. You had to buy a $10 token to use it. I don't know. I never got to, because I told my buddy, I said, I'm not taking that gamble because we're passing people that are coming back saying they couldn't use their token because the water ran out. So I said, you're paying them $10 and you might get a shower, but you have to walk 2 miles to get there, buddy. So it's like,
and even by the time you walk there, all sweated up, shower, and then walk back, you're already sweating.
And it was like 100 degrees. So inside the venue, they said there were supposed to be 5 water stations. And what they meant was a row of maybe 5. I could consider them water stations. I want to say there were maybe 12 pumps, and they were all in the same tent. So the line to the tent was so long, we saw 2 people pass out waiting for water on the first day. And I went to the information because I said, look, we had the idea. I said, we're going to bring 2 bottles of water in and liquid IV. I said, the liquid IV is going to give you the electrolytes. You're going to, it's not going to dehydrate you as much. You could use like a Gatorade pouch or something if you wanted to use that instead. Basically the same idea. You bring the 2 water bottles in, because I think most venues say oh, you can bring some water in. It just has to be sealed. So I said, we're going to bring in a bunch of the liquid IV packets. We'll drink the 2 waters. Their water is probably going to taste like garbage, right? So you're going to refill the bottle, pop in the liquid IV to give it some flavor. I said, and then you can drink their dirty, pipe water or whatever it ends up being. So we get in there and it worked. But there was only that one pump station. So you would have to wait in line. So we strategically started to say, all right, we just need to go get in line every hour or 2 and fill up both our waters. And even if you're not thirsty, chug them. And we were still dehydrated. You could see, that you were dehydrated. And we were chugging water as fast as we can, and we were making a point to go up there. I went to information. I said, look, where are these other water stations? Because I think the one email said there were supposed to be 5. I should have saved the stuff. And I didn't. I knew I should have. And they were like, oh yeah, they're all the way up on the top of that hill in the corner. I was like, yeah, that's the one station. Where are the other stations? You've talked about increasing the water stations. You don't have them. But yet you have some jackass here selling bottled water for $4.50. That's probably warm because it's in a cooler he's carrying, right? So the next day, they brought out 4 more water spouts and put it down by the information booth because I guarantee I wasn't the only one that was asking where the other stations are. And so by strategically putting it right there, when people would go to the information booth, they would just say, oh, I guess this is the water station. And that one was always packed up. Apparently there was one in VIP that had some bacteria in it that a lot of people got sick. Fortunately, that didn't happen to me, right? So if you're listening to this, because I'm assuming people are going to download and listen to this that haven't really listened to the show, Colin, I'll do a special podcast just talking about this. I don't want to spend the entire show on it, but I wanted to bring it up and just say it was poor planning. You can't have a bunch of people come in, and I talked to a bunch of staff. Staff were quitting in the middle. It's like, hey, we're going to be able to get food. It's like, no, those people just quit. They just left. So the food's just sitting there. And it's like, do you take the food? People were taking food and just putting money in the booth, which I've never seen in my life. Because I was like, who are you thinking is going to come and take this money? Right? It's like the concert fairy going to come in and take the money as you're taking the food. People are not in the booth for a reason. They gave up. They quit. They were tired of it. Some people were telling me that they weren't given food. They weren't given water. It's too hot. Can you imagine working a grill in 100-degree heat and not being given water? And they were being forced to pay for it. Dude, you'd be chugging so much water at $4.50 a bottle. There's no way you would be making money because they're probably paying a minimum wage, right? Your entire hour of pay is to get you 2 bottles of water. And I guarantee they were drinking more than that. And I mean, what are they going to tell them? Someone was like, oh, don't quit. You're going to get tips. And I thought how do you know they're going to get tips? Because if they're making him pay for water and he's dying of thirst, they're not going to give him tips either. Right? It doesn't make sense. It's not worth it. The guy's right. If he has to waste his entire hour paycheck on water, I don't blame him for quitting, man. And that's why they were just leaving food, just lay there. And I've never seen that happen in my life. I've never seen just booths of food being abandoned. And then they tried to gather all the food that was cooked and sell it in the back of like a food truck looking thing. And the guy's like, oh yeah, we have food from the venue. We're trying to sell it down here. It's like, all right, what's the price? Is it cheaper? It's like, no. It's still like a crazy amount. It's like what's that, Panda Express, where you get like the little rice bowl for like $4 or whatever. It's $20 there. A pizza that you normally pay what, $10-20 for, $60.
Wow.
I was like, are you insane? I asked the one guy, because it said a personal pan pizza for $18. I said, hey, that looks like a pretty good deal. Is that the $18 pizza? He said, the $18 pizza is like a tiny Pizza Hut pizza. This is $60, buddy. And it was almost like a Domino's medium or something. And I thought, that is insane. You could get 2 of those for $5.99 each, right? At Domino's. I could just go and order Domino's. If there was only another road into here, right? That's what got me, because the entire time they keep talking about how you can't have an event with this many people, but at Michigan Stadium, there's so many different roads where if you don't like where you are, you just walk to the next block. Or like Penn State, like you're walking through fields kind of, but there are multiple ways to get in and out. Here, there's only that one road. Like they talked about, I went to the box office, and this will probably be the last thing I say on it. I went to the box office, and the guy was like very defensive. It was like, hey, the show has to be canceled. You guys just kicked us out. And he's like, the show's not going to be canceled. There's no way we're canceling this. And even if we did cancel, you'd be getting a refund. And that's the purpose of me bringing it up, because they talked about sending out a message about us getting a refund. We would know within a week, right? Because they didn't put on the show, and it wasn't weather canceled, because it didn't rain really at all Saturday or Sunday.
It rained.
Oh, Saturday it did, but not on Sunday. It did not rain on Sunday, dude.
That you remember, because you're in a heat stroke state.
No, I'm telling you, I went home and I actually had my tent out. I washed it with the hose, and it actually dried, and I was able to put everything away. So I know it didn't rain that day because I put all my stuff out and I washed it in my driveway with the hose. I'm sure my neighbors, or maybe even my cameras, have it on there, because I thought, it's so nice. It's not even, it was like 80. Like, it wasn't bad, but it was like sun. It would be like, oh, it would be nice, like, to be sitting outside, you know, at a game or something. Because I said the same thing. Like, we could have went out on Saturday if they would have canceled early and went to a game. I think the NC State game was postponed on Saturday, which is the day that they postponed our show for Lightning, which I get. If you want to postpone for Lightning, that's fine. But the NC State Notre Dame game, they ended up playing because the Lightning stopped. And once the Lightning stopped, they waited till 5 p.m. to cancel. And the only reason you do that is because you're trying to sell the food that the venue had. That's the only thing I could think of, is that they knew that they had food left over. If they let people linger around, where else are you going to go? Like I said, you couldn't order food in. So if you have experience, reach out, let me know. I'd love to have you call into the show, or we could just do an extra episode, put it out there. I have pictures. I've seen cars get stuck in the mud, and it wasn't so much because of the amount of rain we got. It was just because they didn't put gravel down or anything. You were just driving through a field, and a field that's a little bit wet has like 20 cars spinning out on it is going to become mud.
Well, take it a step further, though. It's not like it was a bunch of four-wheel drive vehicles that knew where it was going to go. When you have a bunch of like random two-wheel drive cars that are out there and not prepared for worst-case scenario stuff.
Well, that's what I was waiting for. I mean, I had my Prius, man. I'm not lying. We had to wait until the guy could come and put boards under it, just because like the grass was all worn down because there was only one road in, and it was up a hill. So cars just spinning up the hill, because once the first day was canceled, people panicked. And I think I want to say maybe about 10% of people left the campsite that first day. And Slipknot ended up playing the next day. So like we did get to see Slipknot play and Danzig. So there were a couple big bands that did play. But because of everyone panicking that first day while it was raining, the roads were ruined. And they said, oh, we came through and we fixed them. They didn't do shit. because all they would have had to do, and they had bales of hay there too, because I thought, you know what, if they would have put hay down, it probably would have soaked up most of the mud and it would have been fine. They didn't put them out. The bales of hay are just sitting there. And I said, like, we could probably roll these out and it would probably soak up because there wasn't that much water there. But they didn't do anything. They didn't put gravel down. They didn't do anything. All they did was they had a truck that was sitting there that had boards, and they'd put the boards under your tires, and then you would move a little bit, and they'd move the boards. It took forever. I think I had to reset the boards under my car 4 times to get out. And there's just a line of cars behind me. And that was on Sunday. And they wanted everyone out before 2 p.m. for whatever reason. Because that's whenever they needed, probably for insurance or some crap. But that's my thing. If you want people to come to events, you have to make it reasonable. Like, even if I was going to come in and I'm like, oh, I want to see the bands, at what point do you want to sit there? Because, like, my buddy, he's like, maybe I don't go to shows anymore with you. Because I honestly, at this point, I'd rather just spend my money and buy a virtual reality helmet and just sit and watch the concert on YouTube. And I don't blame him, man. If you can't be outside for long periods of time for whatever reason, health, like I said, people were passing out, and I know they were just dehydrated, because if I can't get water and I had a plan, people that didn't have a plan, they weren't getting water.
They were big time screwed.
Yeah. And people were saying that they had money on their wristbands that they wouldn't go through. So they were having to pay on their card anyway. And then the wristband money, they haven't been able to get off. Like, it's kind of just like in a no man's land. And the first thing when I signed on and they were like, do you want to put money on your wristband? I thought, there's no way in hell I'm giving you guys any of my money in case something like this happens. Like, I want to take as little money as possible because, like, I don't want to be screwed. There were people that ran out of gas waiting in that line that I told you about, the 10-hour line. So they were walking up and paying whatever. There was one random gas station on the Speedway thing, and I think they said the gallon of gas was like $8 or something like that.
Oh.
So they're paying $8 just to fill up a little can. I don't know where the hell they got the can of gas, but everyone seemed to have the same one. So I assume they were selling it there at the general store. Which, what a dick move. Hey, we're going to make you sit so your gas runs out. But don't worry, we'll sell you a little canister that it looks like it holds a gallon. And you can just pay us $8 and we'll fill it up for you. and then you can walk it back to your car. And then when you're on your way back through, just stop in and then you can top your car off with $8 a gallon gas. Because I filled up right before we got there, and my Prius went down 2 bars. And my plan was to just let it run and like charge stuff if we needed it. And I said, I don't know how long we're going to be sitting here to get out. I don't want to run my car. Because you can't really jump a Prius. And I didn't want to run out of gas. So one of the most miserable planning things I've ever done. All I wanted to do.
Kudos to you for having enough savvy ahead of time of recognizing the potential crap show that it was going to be.
Oh, I
the plan going in.
I had Epicenter was another festival a couple years ago that was the first one that really opened my eyes because they had a storm come through and there was only one road to get to our hotel, and we stayed in that line forever after they canceled the show. And like, you were just exhausted, and I said, they're blocking off all these roads. There's no way. They blamed it on like, well, we couldn't get medical personnel in and out. It's like, you blocked all the roads. Why couldn't they have come in through a different road? And I had honestly mapped out, because like, I have the Garmin watch, right? So you can log in and see like a GPS topical area of where you are. Because I thought, I might need to know this. I need to drop a pin exactly where I am. I think I might even have the pin saved on my Google Maps somewhere. But I told my buddy, I said, look, the river that comes down through, I think it actually goes all the way south to Raleigh, is right behind where our campsite is. So I said, like, worst case scenario, we can just follow this river and it will eventually take us to somewhere, right? And I can get someone to come back up later and get my car if I need to, right? Because what are they going to do? Tow it and do me a favor? Like, get it out of the goddamn swamp? Because, like I said, it wasn't even bad. You could drive through the grass. It wasn't wet. It was only the one path that turned into mud. So it was just kind of waiting for other people to clear out their campsites so that you could zigzag through the grass. Because they had it so packed tight that the fire lane wasn't really a fire lane. It was just that one mud path. And they were ripping through on their stupid side-by-sides and just creating more mud and more mud. And it made me think, like, why am I paying money to do this? Like, if I go to even an NC State football game, why am I paying money? Like 40, I think the Hurricanes parking is $40. Why am I paying you $40 to park my car? Right? Like, that field sits empty every day of the week. They even do an office commute there. Like, I can park there and then take a bus to work at NC State. Why am I paying you $40 at 7 p.m. to park there? To me, it makes no sense. So, like, when they complain and say, like, no one's coming to our games, it's like, yeah, tickets are $10, but parking's $40. So that's already, like, quadrupling your price if you're going alone. And it's the same with the concert. Yeah. Oh, awesome. I can get tickets for $100 or whatever. Oh, yeah, pizza's $60, though. Or water's $4. Like, my buddy ended up, he couldn't wait anymore and he was getting sick. He bought $9 worth of water. I just sat there and shook my head at him. You fool. Why don't you chug the water while we were standing up in line? You might have got one of those bacterial diseases, but you wouldn't have had to pay $9 for those 2 waters. Because they were like the small food line waters, you know. You buy $3, you get 100 of them. It's like, nah, I couldn't do that. I could have just bought them and sold my own stuff outside the venue. Said, my bottled water, put up my own logo on it with my face and sold it in the thing. That's the route I should have went. Because, like, that's the one thing that, like, you go to a game, go to a concert, do whatever. If they're giving you so much price gouging where it's like a hamburger, it's like $20. It's like, why? This better be the best burger I've ever tasted. Because, like, the Curve, remember the Curve had, like, the half-pound burgers that were gigantic?
Yes. I had one this summer, and it was wonderful.
Yeah, it wasn't this. This is like the McDonald's size patties where they're, like, super thin, and you're like, why did I pay $20 for that? The one guy was like, I watched him eat one, and he was like, what a waste of $20. Because, I mean, people are probably starving, man. I did the bread and peanut butter. You can just eat as much peanut butter banana sandwiches as possible. Don't need to refrigerate it. Do whatever. And, like, just going into the stadium, like, the one thing that did annoy me, the final thing, is, like, you go into games, you know it's going to be a pain in the ass to go, like, get stuff. Even going to, like, Michigan Stadium, you get to your seat, you're thirsty. You're like, do I want to walk up to the concession stand? The answer is no. You don't want to walk up 100 rows of seats, right? And then walk all the way back down. Because it's exhausting to walk up out of your seat in Michigan Stadium to get up to where the vendors are. So now everyone has camel packs, you know? The very first thing whenever you bought the tickets is like, camel packs, not allowed, right? Can't bring those into the stadium. We get into there, everyone's wearing them. I felt like a biggest idiot. I was like, how did you get that through? And they're like, oh yeah, because of the heat. They said they're making an exception. I was like, man, I should have just bought one of those and brought it anyway. But worst case scenario, I'd have had to walk 2 miles back to put it back at my campsite. But, like, that would have been the way to go. Just sit there and drink water like a camel, like I'm hiking through a desert, you know? Very disappointing. I wish, like, venues and stuff, if there's one thing that comes out of this, because apparently the Attorney General in Virginia is looking at it, there should be no restrictions on bringing water into events. Yeah, if some jackass wants to fill his Camelback with vodka and dehydrate himself, let him, right? They should be able to look and see if it's a clear liquid and let you in. That's my stance on it, in terms of safety. Because there should be no way that you can't bring water into an event like that. And that goes for any sporting event. That's my final thoughts on it. I hope we hear more Hope we get a refund. We'll see what happens. I know I'm annoyed by it, and I'm annoyed that they're blaming it on the behavior of the people there, but nah, that's not going to fly with me. That's my big thing. Let's get into some football talk now. As I was sleepwalking through this past week trying to recover from being just exhausted, because not only did you have the events going on, the quiet time was like from 2 to 8 in the morning. And at a concert, of course, everyone's playing music right up until 2 in the morning, so you can't go to sleep until 2. So you're getting a good 6 hours of sleep there on top of the heat. And that's if you can fall asleep right away. Because once 8 o'clock hits, everyone's up there tailgating, ready to go, you know?
Yeah.
So like I've been tired for like the entire week. And apparently college football programs were doing the same thing because I know Florida State and Michigan, they got together and decided like, hey, let's sleepwalk through this week. No big deal.
Don't even get me started because I thought, we're in autopilot mode. They started out the game and they said about the left tackle and center being out, and I was like, that could be a little bit of a problem. And they came out guns a-blazing at first. I was like, all right, well, maybe we're going to be all right. Well, it was like a little bit after halftime. I was like, well, we're cruising. I'm going to catch a nap. I fell asleep. I could come to, and I'm all disoriented. I was like, what the hell's going on? Like, we're going to lose this game. And then it was just like, I think between Norvell and Atkins, the coordinator, they got themselves pigeonholed into this way of getting themselves out of trouble because they have, between Johnny Wilson and Keon Coleman, they have these two guys that are 6'7", 295 pounds. And it's like, we're just going to throw it up to the big sumo wrestlers and let them have it. Well, that works every once in a while. You can't base your entire offense around just chucking it up to those guys because it doesn't work. Like, at some point, you have to have some other looks to try to get the ball in space. And it was like, this chuck it up is going to get your ass beat.
Well, I will say I thought Florida State had buried him. I was watching a couple. The concert made me finally get a battery-powered TV. So I was playing around with that because I needed it for like an extra monitor. And I thought, I should just get one that can get TV, like a TV tuner you can build in and watch the games. So I had the Florida State game up on that, but I was kind of just testing the battery, so I wasn't really watching it too much. And I'm like, oh, they're killing him anyway. I don't need to pay attention. And then you text me, and I'm like, oh my gosh, Florida State's going to lose this game? I thought they're up like 28 points or something.
Yeah, the spread was 26.5. I was like, oh yeah, they're covering this spread easy. I'm gonna catch a little bit of snooze here and get caught up on some sleep from the week. No, stress me out.
Hey, I was there were a couple games like Georgia was tight at first, and I thought, is Georgia going to go down? That'd be like a weird thing because you can't really twist it. Because like overall, the one thing like that turned out is like almost all the top teams didn't show up. And you have like a system where almost everyone that doesn't show up and plays a tight game, then the polls don't really do anything. So I don't think they really penalized anyone. I think they did penalize Florida State though. But that Boston College team was bad. I was surprised that they even came back. And you could say that they were looking forward to Clemson. I hope that's true. Because if they play like they did Saturday, Clemson might run them out of the stadium. Because Clemson's been looking a lot better since that first game.
Well, and in the past, I feel like Boston College has always been one of those games that is like a trap game for them. Because they go up, and usually the weather's crummy, and they don't respond well to playing in the cold of up north.
So what you're saying is this would be a great team to have in the Big Ten.
They'll be practicing in a refrigerator, in a meat locker.
I'm like, I see some of the programs, and it's hard to get a read this early in the game because yeah, there are some teams like Texas was tied with Wyoming. And I know Wyoming beat like Texas Tech, but like, honestly, what made you think that Wyoming's any less of a program than Boston College, right? Like, why would you penalize Florida State but not Texas? Because I think Texas jumped them. And Texas struggled just as bad. I'm like, I brought up Michigan. Michigan struggled in the game. Eventually, like, they just won like by 30 points or whatever. But they were playing Bowling Green. And a lot of their struggles was just JJ making stupid quarterback decisions again. It reminded me of the TCU game where he threw the 2 pick sixes, right? Where they're about to score, he's throwing a pick in the end zone. It's like, why did you do that? You held the ball way too long. You had him wide open. Like, what are you holding it for? What are you waiting for? The defense to get back? Because that's what happened. And then he did it again. I think he ended up with 3 interceptions. It's like, what are you doing? Yeah, Michigan's destroying them. But you're not going to get away with that. Like, we're playing Rutgers this week. If you throw 3 interceptions to Rutgers, you're going to probably be losing the game. Like, you can't do that in the Big Ten. I don't care how bad the programs are. Like, the rest of the Big Ten, at least in the East, isn't bad. Even Maryland. Remember, Maryland beat Texas twice. In Texas and at Maryland. So, like, they're teams that usually lose to the big dogs, but the Big Ten East, like, those programs are actually kind of solid. The only one that looked bad was Michigan State, but they have their own slew of issues as they're trying to fire Mel Tucker, for which still is the craziest story of any coach that I've ever heard. That
it ranks up there with Bobby Petrino on the
bike.
the random Mount Rushmore Hall of getting fired for weird things. Because
he admitted to doing it, right? So now they're firing him with cause. So he's losing, like, I think they said, I had assumed it was like 80 million. I think they said it was closer to 76 million, which is still an insane amount. And it was so bad that the lawyer actually wrote it into his thing. It said, "It is decidedly unprofessional and unethical to flirt, make sexual comments, and masturbate while on the phone with a university vendor." That's what they fired him for. So they included it in the statement. He said it was true. So, like, we don't even have to theorize that he did. Now, whether his argument of it being consensual to the university, that doesn't matter, right? They've even put in there that he was a married man. So he was, like, unfaithful in his marriage. That was in, like, a later statement. I didn't write them all down. Because I'm like, just having a lawyer write that up. Could you imagine going to your job, like an interview, and it's like, "Hey, why'd you leave your last job?" It's like, yeah, I was,
I was on a Zoom. Let me tell you about my Zoom calls.
It's like the craziest thing I've ever heard. You're right, like, put it up there with Petrino. But Petrino lied about it. Like, yeah, I wrecked my bike or whatever. And it's like, yeah, who was the other person? It's like, oh, what? Oh, I don't know. I blacked out. It's like, Mel Tucker was like, "No, I did it, dog. It was just normal."
You mean you don't when you're on the phone? Got you.
Oh, you got me back now?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought Skype just crashed. So, of course, no, Skype crashing and cutting everything out again. I think I had to re-add it to the thing. So I don't even know where I lost you. But I will say that Michigan State, now with Tucker gone, they brought in D'Antonio, I think, as a consultant again, right? And I wonder if they're going for Narduzzi, which seems to be some of the rumors heating up, other than them going after Dion. Which, to me, they did hire Mel Tucker from Colorado. But for them to hire Dion would be insane. Just because the Big Ten doesn't need that in the conference. More media hype? Is that unbelievable? Like, I've been arguing. Okay, so a friend of ours is a big Georgia fan, right? Goes downtown Raleigh. They're playing South Carolina this past weekend, right? You can't watch the game at the bar. And I've been telling people that the ESPN deal for SEC is going to hurt the conference. I've been saying it for weeks now, and for months, maybe, even longer. The Big Ten grabbing all the major network spots, Fox, CBS, and NBC, is going to be such a big shift in college football for recruiting that it's almost insane. And I'm surprised that people are baffled by it. I've had Alabama fans tell me, hey, how did you know that our game wasn't going to be doing as good? Because Colorado and Nebraska beat Alabama and Texas in the TV ratings. ESPN tried to spin it and say that they had the most watched game when they added in, it was almost ridiculous. They added in some streaming numbers to make it look like Texas edged out Colorado by 3 or 30,000 people. But nah, the regular TV numbers, Colorado was on top. Why? Not just because of Dion, but because Alabama and Texas was shoved on ESPN, and there was a blackout on ESPN down here. So guess what? You're not watching the game. You want to watch Georgia play South Carolina? Nah, that's not going to work out for you, buddy. But you know what you can watch? You know what the game on was instead? Iowa State. So having people down here that are big Georgia fans get pissed because they're at the bar and the only game on is Iowa State's, that's a fan, right? Future recruits are going to come in and go out with their buddies, right? And they're going to be watching games, and people are cutting cable, and you can't just buy ESPN, right? You can't. You can't just buy ESPN and stream it. You can buy ESPN Plus. You don't get the SEC games. You do get some ACC games, though. You do not get SEC games with that. I don't think you get the SEC network with ESPN Plus. You have to have the ESPN package through your cable. Because I did try to watch one of the, maybe it was Georgia, South Carolina, and I couldn't get it either. And that game was tight, right? So in the future, I'm telling you, this is only year one. Some of the SEC games are still on CBS. Next year, I think they're done completely. If you're using the top 10 this week, next year the Big Ten would have 6 teams in the top 10. Would have Michigan, USC, Ohio State, Penn State, Washington, and Oregon. 6 of the top 10 are Big Ten teams next year. They're going to be on major network TV, right? They're going to be, everyone keeps saying, I've heard some SEC, I've seen some SEC propaganda saying, well, at least we know where you can catch the SEC games that are all going to be on ESPN. People are going to be confused. They're not going to be able to find the Big Ten games because they're on 3 different networks. NFL seems to be doing fine. The NFL seems to be doing fine. I wouldn't even be surprised if typically the NFL, all the NFC games are on Fox. The AFC games are on CBS. I wouldn't even be surprised if they started to pick straws and Fox is going to say, well, we got all the Michigan games. And CBS is like, well, we'll get all the Ohio State games. And then NBC's like, yeah, we'll take all the USC games or something because we'll have the late slot. I wouldn't be surprised if that's how it ended up. And people are just like, well, I know for Michigan, I just watch the Fox every Saturday and that's going to be the game. But I'm telling you, it's going to be a lot easier for recruits whenever that's like, hey, what game's on when you go out? It's like, oh, Purdue's playing Wisconsin. It's like, oh, okay. That's going to make an impact. It might not happen immediately. But when games like Nebraska, Colorado are out drawing Texas, Alabama, that's an issue for the SEC. They're not going to keep paying them more money if they're not getting the TV advertisers.
Well, and you look at this, I mean, it just increases my rage of the trying to squeeze every possible dollar out of this. Because I feel like with some of these games, you're having to hunt and search for games that are more competitive, and you're watching 2 Drool Fest games on the prime networks.
But that's what they did. They want to hide it behind cable. This week, we will get Alabama Ole Miss on CBS, right? So, like, if we go to the following week, let's see what games are on there. You would have Fox is going to have. Oh no, CBS is going to have Georgia Auburn. But like next year, they're not going to have it. ABC is going to have one game out there. This coming week it would be, or the next week it'd be Kansas at Texas. Okay, awesome. That could be an SEC game. Right now, that might be part of the Big 12 thing, but it's the same thing. Like the big key game, week 4, is going to be Florida State at Clemson. In next year, if ESPN says like we only get one primetime spot on ABC, they're not going to pick an SEC game over Florida State Clemson if it's going to be a perennial like playoff implicated matchup, right? There's no way they're going to put on Ole Miss at Alabama over Florida State Clemson. I feel like there's no way they're going to do that. Florida State Clemson would have to get better TV ratings. No one watches Ole Miss games. They just don't. That's almost like putting Indiana at Ohio State over it. Maybe you'll get the Ohio State guys in, but most people don't care about the Indiana-Ohio State matchup. You're better off throwing on Clemson, Florida State. And ESPN's going to make that decision. Now, it's going to piss off some SEC fans, but ESPN, they have too many mouths to feed. And they only have ABC, and they're looking to sell ABC, which is a big key part. If they sell ABC, every SEC game is going to be on cable only. That's going to be worse. I mean, or actually, it's going to be just as bad as the Pac-12 going with like Apple TV, dude. You can't convince me otherwise. There's no way people are going to pay for ESPN as a casual fan. If my school's on,
you will get casual people for ESPN just with that being covered under a standard cable package, just a basic generic cable package.
But it's not anymore. That's why they're losing viewers. That's why they lost 20 million people the last couple of years.
But part of that's also when you're charging however much more for the streaming service, and now you're gouging that price. That's where you're pissing people off, because it's like, how are you going to have 7,000 channels and you're still blacking out games? Like, if you're paying for this, show the games. That's the part that's more annoying than anything.
Well, that's the one thing that I put together a map of like the new Big Ten and the SEC. I think the Big Ten, just in the states that the TV teams are in, it's like 130 million to just 100 for the SEC. If you're only targeting those 100 million people, and like, let's be honest, some of those states have multiple teams. So like all of Texas isn't going to buy ESPN just to watch Texas. They're not going to care. Like Fox still shows Big 12 games. They're showing Colorado every week, it seems like. So like, what do I think I have this week's schedule up? Yeah, they're showing Colorado playing Oregon. Of course, it's a Pac-12 game this year, but next year this could be like Colorado playing Texas Tech or something. Yeah, it could be on ABC, but it could be on whatever channel. And if ESPN picks Colorado Oregon over Ole Miss Bama, that game's going to be only on cable. Are people in Texas going to pay for Texas Longhorn Network? No, they never did. They're not going to pay for ESPN. It's already been proven. The Longhorn Network showed that people in one state, maybe you can get them with A&M and Texas, but just having one team, TCU fans aren't going to buy it. Houston fans aren't going to buy it. Excuse me. Baylor, Texas Tech. Like, maybe you could get Michigan when you have Michigan and Michigan State. That you might be able to get the whole state. Penn State, you might lose some Pitt people, but I think for the most part, Penn State's going to cover the entire state. Ohio State covers the entire state of Ohio. When you get into some of those split states, are they going to carry the entire state of Florida? No. So people are just going to naturally, if you're just a casual fan, and it's like, well, the Gators are on, but I have to pay $50 a month. That's insane. I'll just start cheering for UCF. They're on Fox. It's free. They're on at 3:30 every Saturday. They're playing some Big 12 school. It's like, okay, that might work out better for me. And I think that's what's going to happen. I think you're going to see a shift of like some of the big time programs are now behind a paywall when some of them aren't. I was telling a friend of mine, they were worried about the new TV channel deal. I said, you're insane. I can send you an antenna for $20 at Walmart and you can watch every key Big Ten matchup this year and next year. I showed him the schedule. He's blown away. I don't know if he went out and bought an antenna. I should have followed up before the show to see if he went out and bought one. I said, you don't have to pay for any network. I said, all of our games are pretty much going to be on TV except for like this week, Michigan's on the Big Ten Network. I think they do like 1 or 2 games a year on the Big Ten Network. But is Michigan-Rutgers really a big-time game that you would need to watch? Maybe. Michigan could lose. I don't know. But in terms of like the regular Big Ten, this week is going to be Ohio State, Notre Dame. That's on NBC. Do I have to pay for that? Nah. I just need the antenna. And I get it for free. That's what is going to be the key difference. Oh, the other Big Ten game this week? Iowa and Penn State. Same time for whatever reason. Pretty dumb scheduling. But it's on CBS. So I have 2 TVs set up, Matt. I don't have to pay for any cable. I have 2 antennas. One's on CBS for free. The other's on NBC. I get 2 ranked Big Ten matchups on free television this Saturday night. Awesome. You can't beat that. You can't beat it. So all the other networks, people saying like, it's not going to be bad. You're going to get casual people to buy. It's like, no, what's going to happen is you're going to see casual people just buy antennas. And it's going to go back to the 1990s where it's like, hey, what's the game on? Oh, it's Penn State. Oh, but I like Iowa. Oh, go ahead and read about them in the newspaper tomorrow. That's like what it's becoming. Or you can just find a stream online of some guy. And it's like, all right, I guess I'll have to watch that way. Or you go to the game. Go to the game. Buy $30 nachos. Sit down. If it rains, you're stuck. They might make you get out of the stadium, come back in. You can't go out and tailgate again. That's a no-no. Once you're in, you're locked in, baby. $10 beers. Or worse, $13 or $20 beers. Then you're stuck. But that's my college take. Yeah, there are some bummer games, but like if it's not on TV, like Texas Wyoming was on the Longhorn Network last week. I think the Michigan one was on the Big Ten Network. If you don't watch them, does anybody know? Michigan didn't go down in the polls at all, which makes me think no one watched the game because it was on the Big Ten Network. They just saw, oh, Michigan won by 30 again. Let's just keep them where they are. They don't know that JJ threw 3 interceptions. And actually, did it even matter? No. Donovan Edwards? I don't know what the hell he's talking about. He was saying he's planning to be like Barry Sanders. The Ohio State game, I love him for it. Hasn't shown anything this year. He shouldn't even be touching the ball. Hey, I see a hole. Does he hit it? Nah, he's getting tackled for a 2-yard loss, baby. I don't know what happened. He only broke his hand last year, so his speed shouldn't be gone. Those 2 long 80-yard touchdown runs against Ohio State, awesome. But this year, it's like if Blake goes down and JJ's throwing picks, Michigan could be in a world of trouble. But if it's on the Big Ten Network, no one will know. Michigan could have a halftime deficit to Rutgers this weekend, and as long as they win, people will just read the box score and keep voting them number 2, baby. And if Georgia goes down, even better. Michigan could be number 1. Texas is like, put all our games on the Longhorn Network. No one will know that we are tied with Wyoming in the 4th. No one will know. It was like 10-10. They won 31-10, but at the beginning of the 4th quarter, they were tied 10-10 with Wyoming. But it was on the Longhorn Network. So no one knows. The only thing that actually made the score worse, they took a pick 6 to the house, Matt. Would you know that? Nope. Wouldn't know it. They had a touchdown. Wyoming kicked the field goal at the end of the 3rd, which made it 10-10. Texas throws a touchdown. Then they score, and then they have the interception return to really blow it open. Otherwise, Wyoming had a chance. That's probably why they threw the pick. So I don't know what to believe this early in the season. I think the Notre Dame game, if you're a Florida State fan, after their showing against Boston College, you have to cheer for Ohio State. I hate to say it. I think there's a better chance for the Big Ten to beat each other up this year. If Notre Dame beats Ohio State, Notre Dame doesn't really have a lot of chances to get extra losses this year. Where if they're presumably have one loss up against a one-loss Florida State, and they have a win over Ohio State, I'm thinking that Notre Dame is going to take the ACC spot. And let's be honest, I don't want to see Notre Dame in. Do you?
I'd rather just see Florida State win out, just handle business.
Well, let's be honest. I think a lot of teams are going to. I would be very surprised if we have a bunch of undefeated teams this year. I think we're going to have a playoff with a couple one-loss, maybe two-loss teams. Because this week, I don't think a lot of that was sleepwalking. I would be surprised if Florida State can get through. Now, with the new no divisions, it makes it even worse. Because you could, in theory, beat Clemson on the road and lose to them in the ACC championship game and get eliminated, right?
That is true.
Which I know I hate. I hate the non-divisions. I hate it. I think it's a bad strategy by each conference. But that's my last thing. I did want to talk about NFL. Oh no, wait! I had one more thing for college. The Travis Hunter hit. I watched the game. There was a lot of trash talk between Colorado and Colorado State. Why? I'll never know. Right? There was no need for that game to be chippy.
Colorado and Colorado State, and you just keep your North Carolina butt out of it.
You think it's a big time rivalry?
I don't know. I'm not from Colorado.
That's no offense, but that's kind of like the NC State East Carolina rivalry, right? Where NC State's supposed to win almost all of the time, right? Colorado's supposed to win almost all the time. Ironically, very similar to the Oklahoma State rivalry, where our boy Mike Gundy seems to be like he's ruining his program. He's pulling the old.
He's like that F-35. He's just flying without a pilot right now.
He's just pulling through. Just gonna go ahead and let's nuke it. Like let's go ahead and just start losing to Southern Alabama or South Alabama, whatever they are, and it's gonna blow up in my face. I don't even care. That's what Colorado is like. Dion, take care of business, man. You're getting your team hyped up. You're giving them. You're wearing shades or whatever. Like, just ignore them. You got to do the big time program thing with them. It's like if I know NC State kind of they get into East Carolina and they're like, yeah, you're trying to be a big time program. East Carolina sells out the stadium. They have a good fan base. But in terms of resources, NC State should take care of business almost all the time. And when East Carolina comes close to beating them, like last year, and they should have beat them if it was for a field goal, it should be a shocker to the NC State program that they're letting them take resources from the area and stealing them. It's a little bit different when it's like Michigan and Michigan State when they're in the same conference, kind of like UNC and NC State where, yeah, there should be some back and forth. They're both big time programs, but Colorado and Colorado State, there's a gigantic difference in terms of funding. And I know Dion had the turnaround, but to be able to put away TCU and then have to go to overtime with Colorado State kind of scares me going into the Pac-12 for them. But the big thing was, because it got chippy, there was a Travis Hunter play where he went up for the ball and their safety 100% took a cheap shot. Now they're saying there's death threats and stuff. I think that's part of the social media type. Let's hype things up. And I don't know if that's drawing more attention to the situation or if there really are death threats. I can't speak to that.
I'm almost there would be, because there has to be knuckleheads thinking that this was going to ruin his chance at a Heisman, at Colorado's chance for national.
Oh, it 100% ruins his chance as a Heisman. I said his first game, his stats were better than Charles Woodson's at the beginning of the year. And all they had to do was win, because it has to be a team game. You can be the best player and win the Heisman. It hasn't happened for a long time. Desmond Howard, Michigan was 9-1 that year or something like that. Like they weren't in the national championship run, but he had so many touchdowns that they said, like when they did the Heisman review, I watched a couple of Heisman reviews. I think it was like for the Heisman House or something last year, where they said like no one was close to Desmond. So when he struck the Heisman, everyone had already known that he had won it. So like it wasn't like him saying like, I'm going to win the Heisman, let me strike a Heisman here. It was kind of just like, hey, no one's going to do this, but I just scored like my 20th touchdown. It's like going to be a record, and I'm just going to go ahead and strike a Heisman here to rub it in, which is a ballsy move, right? So Charles Woodson tried to do the Heisman pose on his punt return against Ohio State, and then they mobbed him before he could get it in. He pointed at the camera just like Desmond, and then they jump on him, so he never got to pull it off. But I always wonder, because like it was closer for him, because Peyton Manning. A lot of people don't realize he beat Peyton Manning that year for the Heisman. And then Peyton Manning decided not to play well against Nebraska and gave them half a national championship for some reason. Philip Fulmer, he was so mad about it that he voted Michigan down to 4th or whatever. which is why I think the votes should be public, right? I like looking at the AP poll and seeing like, what's this idiot thinking? Why is he voting that team so high? Is he drunk? Does he not watch the games? So like, I think the coaching polls should be public, because like, I'm wondering like, who's voting these teams number one? Like, is Texas voting themselves number one? Like, is Nick Saban like unironically voting them number one? I wonder sometimes. I think they should make those votes public. Because remember, wasn't it Joe Paterno that was like, when he was asked about the Michigan vote, and he's like, oh, I don't even vote. Some GA does that. And it's like, what an ass. Like, that's part of the reason why Penn State and like they're always like, the Big Ten hates us. It's like, well, you probably voted for Nebraska that year, you dick. And instead of coming out and saying that you did, you were just like, oh, I don't even vote in those. So make them public. Let's see, because like right now, Florida State still has one vote in the AP poll. They must not have watched the Boston College game. Ohio State still has one.
They're like the rest of us and turned it off after they saw the Eminem beatdown.
So Ohio State has one in the coaches poll. Is it him? Is it Ryan Day voting? Michigan also has one, which makes me wonder, is Harbaugh voting for himself? Like, I want them to be public. I want to just know, is Michigan voting for Ohio State to give them hype? And then Ohio State's voting for Michigan to like be like, look, they're getting a vote, but it's secretly Ryan Day. Like, wouldn't that be a good strategy? You're like, guys, we got to practice hard. These jackasses are getting a first place vote. And it's like, coach, you did that. He's like,
no. What happens is Harbaugh votes for Ohio State and Ryan Day votes for Michigan, because they're like, oh, I'll beat them later, and then it'll just make me look better when I catapult through the ranks.
Yeah, that's a part of the strategy. That's good business, right? Because like everyone else voting Georgia, it's like, oh, good one, guys. They did struggle with South Carolina, and they're just no good number one team. Like, if Notre Dame beats Ohio State, are they going to end up with 30 first place votes next week? They're ranked 9th right now in both. Washington's looked the best. They're ranked 8th. I don't know what's going to happen. But I wish they would just make the votes public, because like the votes are all bullshit. But I think that was the last thing, the Travis Hunter thing. Because now he's out. There goes his Heisman. It was kind of like when Blake Corum got hurt last year. He was like the legit non-quarterback chance for a Heisman that we get every once in a while. And I think if he wouldn't have got hurt, his touchdowns and yards and stuff probably would have had it be like a coin flip between the two. He gets hurt, and then it's Caleb Williams, right? No one else had any chance. This year, Hunter had a chance. He had a legit chance to make it not be a quarterback, because I'm tired of quarterbacks winning it. Like, I was pumped that Devonta Smith did. It was only like him and Desmond Howard, right? There can't be that many wide receivers that have won it. Oh, Tim Brown, wasn't it him? 3 that I can think of?
Yeah, he was a Notre Damer.
Well, let's not bring Notre Dame into it. I can give the guy props without propping up his school, Matt. Remember? Florida State's against Notre Dame in terms of playoff bids, right? They get that ACC vote. They just brought in their buddy Stanford, your new rival. But the NFL, I want to talk about them real quick before we wrap up. The NFL came out and said that they're doing data-driven analysis, Matt, on knee injuries.
This already sounds like when Mike McCarthy was like, I use data. and then was like, psych. Nah, I wasn't.
Well, if you watch the Steelers game last night, Nick Chubb took a shoulder pad. I think it was a shoulder pad or a helmet. They didn't really show a replay. And I'm honestly not going to, what am I, a psycho? I'm not going to be looking that video out. Where he takes it to his knee, and his knee just gets completely bent the other way, right? I don't think there was bone sticking out, but his ligaments had to have all been destroyed. And so the NFL's like, well, to be honest, guys, we saw that injury, but we want you to know that we're using data-driven analysis to prevent future knee injuries. And it's like, what the hell are you talking about? Is the data going to show you like when the guy's going to get hurt? And like, hey, coach, don't run the ball here. There's a good chance he takes the helmet to the knee. The coach is going to be like, what the hell are you talking about? Get out of here. How would you know that you're going to get hit in the helmet with the knee, right? It makes zero sense because the reason I thought it was a helmet is because didn't Minka stay down too? It wasn't him that delivered the hit.
Yeah.
So it was almost like he thought he was expecting Chubb to make like a cut back, and then he would just kind of take his legs out, but it jammed them both up, right? And it was just disgusting. And so they were both down, and I was like, oh God, like just pour all around. And then they're like, we're not going to show a replay of that. I'm like, thank God. And then they did anyway. They showed a replay. That's the only reason I know what it looked like, because they showed a replay like 5 minutes later, and I'm like, why? And they were like, you should see the other angle. It's even more disgusting. It's basically what they're saying on the broadcast. I'm like, I didn't want to see the first angle, guys. I'm fine with just saying that he tore all his ligaments. Like, it doesn't, you don't even have to be a doctor. I know that wasn't natural. Right? It's like, but he had the same thing happen to him in college. And it's like a weird thing where it's like, maybe that's the data they're looking at, where some ligaments, maybe they are more flexible. I feel like I'm deja vu. I think I might have told you about this in the pre-show. But maybe guys that have like that where, hey, their joints are a little bit more flexible, where a normal guy takes that hit and his legs do kick out. Maybe his knee just gave a little bit, and then there was enough force where it couldn't give anymore and it just snapped. I don't know. It seems like some guys that suffer the knee injuries seem to have them more often, like Saquon Barkley seems to always get hurt. He's out for another 3 weeks. In fantasy, I've been sticking with Eckler because he hasn't been getting hurt, and now he's hurt this year. So my team's basically screwed. I have him. Breece Hall took a major hit early in the game, and then he was wiped out. He never came back in. I don't know if he was injured or if they were just kind of like,
just being hesitant.
You're done. Well, no, they didn't even give him in. Like, they went from Breece and Cook. Like, I think Breece was in the first drive. He only took a couple of carries. He had like 9 yards, took a major hit, and he was done. He never came back. They never gave me alert saying that he was injured, but I had the game on, and they immediately went to, was it Michael Carter or someone? Like, whoever their third string running back was, came out. I hadn't even seen him play like the first 2 games.
Yeah.
He's like, he's in, or the first game, whatever. He's like, hey, he's in. And I thought, well, this isn't good, right? Like, both my running backs are out. That's a great week for me. I guess I'm done. And then I'm like, I see more and more guys get hurt. It's like, how many guys on the IR can I have? All of them? I can't even know who to play. It's like, should I bid on guys? I don't even know who I'm going to pick up. Is it going to be a running back? I don't know. But now both of my guys go out, and I think I still have, I have Jacobs from the Raiders, and he's been playing okay. The Raiders just haven't been as good as I thought they were going to be. But Devontae Adams, another one, never really gets hurt. Of course, he's hurt. I don't know if he's playing next week, but they said that he took a shot to the head. It might just be a concussion. So I don't know. Maybe some guys just get more injured, but I feel like the last couple weeks I went back through our shows, and it seems like around this week 3 or so, we always do a show on injuries, which is why I made this one the injury show. It feels like maybe that's whenever the players break in, when college football programs sleep week 3, the NFL players, if the guy's going to get hurt, this is when injuries start. Because it just feels like, oh, here's a bunch of injured players. Awesome. Now everything's going to kind of settle in, and maybe players won't be going so hard, right? Could that be a thing? First couple games, you're playing hard. You want to make sure you're getting your time in, right? Some players have stipulations that they have to play a certain number of snaps. If they're looking like crap, they're not going to play.
This is also a factor, too. When you look at you're in camp and you're having multiple practices a day, and then you get into that flow of conditioning for camp, and then you get into the regular season. Like, I can see where players are overusing their bodies and pushing themselves, that it opens themselves up to more injuries.
Because some of them, like Aaron Rodgers, like, you're just old, right? And he's like, I'm coming back.
And he was sleeping in a cave for however many months.
Yeah, are you coming back? Because, like, do you want to risk it? Like, they keep having all the commercials about Tom Brady, like, coming back, and then he's always like, nah, I'm not going to do it. But I'm just waiting for him to do it, right? If players keep getting injured, and a team looks like they're close, like the 49ers looked pretty much like lights out first week, and they seem like, well, if they have like some solid quarterback play, they could win it all. And if they have an opening, because like Purdy gets hurt again and they traded all their other quarterbacks away, if they can work out a deal with the Raiders for Tom Brady rights, why not? Right? The Raiders. If Garoppolo's not the answer, they could just bring Tom Brady in. They look like their team's not good at all, though. So I feel like Tom Brady's not going to be able to save them. The Bills just killed them. Right? Some teams like the Jets. Wouldn't it be funny if Tom Brady just started to come in? Zach Wilson gets him into the playoffs. He's not looking good. And they're like, man, we really need Tom Brady. And Aaron Rodgers helps bring a Super Bowl to the Jets by getting hurt and letting Tom Brady come in and win it. And that's not even my scenario, Matt. I've seen a couple people say that there could be a something in the works to bring Tom Brady to the Jets. Because like that could be part of his, like, if he comes and wins the Jets a Super Bowl, no one can ever top him as like the GOAT. Right?
Well, no, the funny thing would be, I saw this because of Cam Akers coming back to the Rams from his Achilles injury, that they're like, Aaron Rodgers will be back just in time for the Super Bowl. And just like play one snap and then be out the whole year and then come back for the Super Bowl. He's just like, this is just what I'm doing now. I'm old. I don't need to play regular season or playoff games.
Well, I did see that, and I was looking at the Cam Akers thing, and the timeline for him, he has to be able to run, right? Aaron Rodgers, in theory, could come back a few weeks earlier because he's more of a quarterback. He doesn't need to be able to make all the cuts. He could do like the T.O. thing. Remember? T.O. just wore that wrap boot thing, and he played lights out in the Super Bowl. Now, of course, it wasn't an Achilles for him, so maybe that would affect his throwing motion. Was it his back foot or his front foot? Because the front foot you really wouldn't need. You don't push off it, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, if they just need a guy that's a better decision maker, you could scheme around it by just keeping him in shotgun. But their line looks bad, dude. You see Dallas was killing them the entire game, and I thought, oh, that's why he got hurt. Right? I see people are hyping up Tom Brady coming there. Why would he want to go there and take so many hits? The 49ers line is so good, it seems like, that Tom Brady could easily go there, not even basically get tackled, because you have like McCaffrey. He's never had a Christian McCaffrey. And he has Deebo Samuel too, right? And George Kittle. Could you imagine? He wouldn't even need to bring his friends with him. He just shows up and wins the 49ers a Super Bowl. I'd get a Tom Brady Niners jersey. That'd be pretty sweet, dude. Although it goes against my Packers, which the Packers, man, 100% on coaching. What the hell are you doing? You have a lead against the Falcons. And then the entire fourth quarter, you play offense like it's 1942. And you're like, all right, I don't know if you watched that game.
Yep.
But Packers have a big lead. They just score a touchdown. And I thought, well, this is going to be over. It's like the early in the fourth quarter. All they have to do is get a couple first downs. And it was like, no, we watched Kyle Shanahan tape of that Super Bowl where they gave up the lead. We're playing the Falcons. Like, this is a good strategy. We'll just run the ball 3 times and punt it. And they weren't even trying. And there was the one where the first time they did the drive, I think it was the first time, where it was 4th and short. And Jordan Love was like, we're going to go for this because we've been getting push here. And he went up and he ran like he was running the sneak. And the center never snapped him the ball. And I was watching the game and it was like, what the hell did he just do? I said, he had the first down. The tackle was there. But the defensive end, there was a gap there. And Jordan Love read it correctly. If you watch where he leans into that hole, he only needs a yard. He read that the defensive lineman didn't pinch down, and he would have easily picked up the first down. All they needed to do was snap the ball. And instead, because he didn't snap the ball, probably because the coach told him, whatever you do, don't snap the ball. And Jordan Love's like, hey, I want you to snap the ball. If that was Aaron Rodgers, I guarantee that ball would have been snapped. And so it makes me wonder, like, is the coach still hesitant on Jordan Love? Because he had a chance to go 2-0. All you had to do was let him throw a couple passes instead of waiting till the last drive where it's like, all right, now you're out of time. You might as well just start throwing it up. Right? Like, it was so dumb. It's like, hey, we're not going to let you throw for the entire fourth quarter. So, of course, you're going to be cold. But then you're going to have to throw with 30 seconds left. It made no sense to me. I thought once they didn't snap the ball, I thought the Packers are going to lose this game. Because they're playing not to lose. They're not trying to win the game. They could have easily won it. All they needed to do was get a first down. And the Falcons just wouldn't have had time. And it wasn't like the Falcons' offense is awesome. The Packers were getting pressure on them.
Hey, their offense is awesome because they have that rookie phenom, Bijan Robinson.
I know. I said that you don't know what's going to happen with him, but all you need is a running back that doesn't get hurt. That's my new thing. If you're a guy that gets hurt, even a little bit, I can't trust you. Unless you're Christian McCaffrey with the 49ers, who now he's on a winning team, he'll never get hurt.
He's done being hurt.
That's my luck. It's like, I should just try to trade for him, but all my guys are hurt, so who am I going to offer? Right? My teams can't even break 100 points. I did see the Your Fantasy team. They send those recaps this year. Did you get those? Your team was the biggest disappointment this week.
They were a disappointment this week.
I thought, man, they're ragging on you. My team couldn't even stay healthy. I don't even think I had guys with 0 points because they get hurt without even getting the ball. It's like, oh, awesome. Thanks, guys. But we weren't a disappointment because Cooper, at the end of that game, if the Browns would have been able to score a touchdown to Cooper, I might have even pulled out the win. But of course, the Browns were, hey, let's just have Deshaun Watson's run around in a circle and like he doesn't know what he's doing and take a couple sacks and just throw the ball away. That's another team where it's like, what's your offensive plan right now? You're not giving him easy completions. The Steelers are getting pressure. Why are you not letting him get the ball out quick? Like, do you want him to get hurt? That was 100% Browns offense. That was like the Browns game where it's like, did you not see the Niners were just getting the ball out quick and absolutely killing the Steelers? Like that, the Niners were up so much on the Steelers that it was almost like watching a high school team, like single A play a quad A school because they were in the same county, right? That's how bad it was. And then the Browns were like, we're not going to do that, but we're going to play into their strength by letting their pass rush just crush our quarterback that we paid all this money for. Like, Deshaun Watson has to be pissed today. That's what I thought watching the end of the game. Because, like, Chubb goes down. So you know all they're going to do now is blitz him. They did have, that 90-yard touchdown run or that 70-yard touchdown run with that backup.
Yeah.
I guess I'll be bidding on him, right? Am I right? But that's all my thoughts. I know I was going long because I did my monologue on the stupid Blue Ridge Rock Festival, which I'll keep everyone updated on that. But That's my thoughts in the NFL. You hear a lot about how these coaches are great. It's the same as watching college football. Why are you turtling? Why are you not giving him any easy routes? Well, is Pep Hamilton the OC there? Every route's a 17-yard route. You have to do a 5-step drop. Because there was another game. There's another game I watched where they needed 3 yards. I don't know if it was college. I can't remember at this point. And it was like 4th and short. And they did a 5-step drop and he got sacked. And I said, you needed 3 yards. Why the hell did you do a 5-step drop and all the wide receivers ran 10 yards downfield? Who drew that play up? You needed 3 yards. Like, it was almost like,
on the side of caution.
Hey, and it wasn't just like, hey, let's take a shot deep. Like, let's try to get him. Have an outlet short, man. Like, if you're doing that, do a quick 1-step drop and run a fade or something. Like, why he took 5 steps, and by the time his back foot hit for that 5th step and he was about to throw, he was already getting sacked. And I said, that was the stupidest play call I've ever seen. You need 3 yards, dude. 3 yards. I forget what game that was. I want to say it might have been college on Saturday. Maybe it was even Boston College. No, Boston College was the face mask that lost him, right? You're just lucky that they pulled the face mask on that tackle. Otherwise, who knows? They might have kicked the game-winning field goal. Maybe this week will be better. I still can't believe the Packers didn't even try to win. I'm like, that's how my weekend went. I'm like, I just don't even care.
My last thing is that I love that Brian Ferentz came out swinging after scoring 40 points.
Yeah, was that real? I thought that could have just been made up, right? Was that his real interview where he said that?
It had to have been real.
They're playing Penn State this week, right?
Because I tell you what, if I was him and I had a bounty for how many points I had to score a game, and it was getting dogged all the time, and then you score that, I'm definitely letting everyone have it.
I know, that's so funny. He's talking trash, but the week before they hadn't hit the goal, right? So they scored 24 and then what, 20? I'm trying to bring up the schedule right now. So now they're playing, and then they scored 41. So they're playing Penn State. He's over the scoring point now because of the 41-point game. Then they have, honestly, one of the easier schedules just because of the Mel Tucker issue. Their other crossover is Michigan State and Rutgers, right? So they have the West, Nebraska, Illinois, Northwestern, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Purdue. All not ranked. Only Minnesota and Wisconsin even have 2 wins, right? And then, of course, your crossover games are Michigan State that just got throttled after losing their coach. And most likely, I forgot to bring this up earlier, but I heard that with the coach getting fired, since they gave him an intent to fire, players now have 30 days to transfer from that letter, which came out, was that yesterday? 2 days ago? They now have 30 days to transfer without penalty, which ironically is right before the Michigan game. So could Sparty be down like half their roster before the Michigan game? And that's a crazy rule by the NCAA because, like, where are these players going to go? Right? You could enter the portal. I think they just have to enter the portal, right, without penalty. I don't think they have to declare where they're going.
Yeah.
Because, like, the teams aren't going to have open spots right now. So it's weird that I guess they had to do it because of they're firing him with cause. So if they would have waited, that they might not have been able to do that because he could have fought back and said, like, if you wanted to fire me for cause, you knew it's public, you didn't do it right away. So they had to do it. So they kind of screwed their entire season because of the timing. All due to the USA Today newspaper that said that an anonymous tip leaked the story to them. Very suspicious. Very suspicious. Michigan State's investigating it. They think one of their board of trustees leaked it. Did you see that?
I can believe it.
They're doing an internal investigation to try to find out who actually leaked it, because only like 5 people had access to the information. So it's all very suspicious. But luckily for Iowa, that they should have a schedule right now. I mean, Rutgers could be the one that, depending if they beat Michigan and they go on a run, who knows? Now, they could very well win 8 games. They could very well win 6 games as Rutgers. Who knows? But with Shawano there, I think they're going to be a solid program. And if Rutgers keeps Iowa from getting the offensive points, I'm going to laugh so hard. Because they play them November 11th. By that time, we should know how close they are, right? And if Rutgers holds Iowa to like 3 points, I'm going to lose it on the show. So, Brian Ferentz, this is to you. Good luck beating Penn State this week. That would be big for the Big Ten East. Because like there's a chance where Penn State didn't look good either for a bit of that game. And Illinois just sucked so bad on offense that they couldn't take advantage of it. And Michigan might need that tiebreaker. So maybe Iowa can do us a favor because we have to play at Penn State this year. We'll see. I have faith in you, Brian. You can get at least 25 points this week. It might not be enough, though. So thanks for listening. And like I said, if you want to call in, talk about the show, any experience you have, not just with Blue Ridge Rock Festival, but any other sporting event and things that went haywire, reach out, let me know. Hopefully get a good resolution, and we will see you next week.